The word is finally out! God of War Ragnarok will be released this year on November 9th. The news was revealed alongside a new CG trailer and a very detailed look at the content of the different editions of the game, which also tell us about some returning features and give us a first look at some of the realms we've yet to visit. So let's not waste any more time. If you're excited for God of War Ragnarok, then leaving a like on the video would really help the channel out. And let's go. So the big news is of course the fact that God of War Ragnarok will be releasing this holiday on November 9th, which is on a Wednesday. Which means that earlier speculations that Ragnarok would take over Starfield's prior release date of November 11th were almost right. And yeah, it also means that this holiday is going to be absolutely packed. We've got Gotham Knights, Final Fantasy Crisis Core Remastered, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora and Hogwarts Legacy all launching relatively close to each other. So it might be smart to already check your agenda and wallet to make sure you're properly prepared. I know which game I'm going to be spending the most time on though. And while there's no new gameplay or state of play announced yet, we did get a new CG trailer that gives us a glimpse at some of the dangers Kratos and Atreus could find themselves up against as Ragnarok approaches. And while we of course already knew the Draugr were returning, at the very end of the trailer we look at a very big wolf. Which has to be Fenrir, right? There's even a part of some form of shackle or chain on his leg, as Fenrir was of course bound and trapped and will only break free during the events of Ragnarok, which we set in motion after Baldur's death in the first game. Also interesting is how the short trailer really focuses on Kratos and Atreus fighting and working together, with Atreus taking out enemies, running for Kratos, them finishing each other's lines in the voiceover.
When you are at your weakest.
In fear and doubt are a burden too heavy to bear.
And of course them standing together in that epic last shot. The first trailer for Ragnarok showed a lot of tension between the two, which will of course be a major part of the story, but this gives me hope that we'll get to see more badass father and son moments in the game like the one we had during the final boss fight of God of War 2018. Well, that was all the info we could grab from the release date announcement. There is a lot more to go over, as we also have information on the 4 different editions of the game that will be available to pre-order starting on the 15th of July at 10 AM local time. Important to note is that when you are buying the standard edition, upgrading to the PS5 version from the PS4 version at a later point will cost you extra, $10 to be precise. All other versions are listed as having both the PS4 and PS5 versions included, but if you're only getting the game for PS4 and want to switch to PS5 at a later date, you'll have to pay a bit more to enjoy the added benefits of the next gen version. Anyone who pre-orders the game, regardless of which edition you end up getting, will receive the Risen Snow armor for Kratos, which is this sturdy white and gold armor with some pretty tough looking shoulder pads and bracers, and the Risen Snow tunic for Atreus, which sticks to a similar color scheme and is purely cosmetic. Which wasn't the case for Atreus' armor in God of War 2018, but I think that the cosmetic part is just for the pre-order and special edition stuff, as the Digital Deluxe edition also has the Darkdale attire for Atreus that's also listed as a cosmetic. But yeah, I don't believe that they would make armors for the boy less impactful in the sequel, as literally everything points towards Atreus being even more useful in combat, and it just makes too much sense to expand on that with meaningful gear choices. That does raise the question, since cosmetic sets are now a thing, if we'll also get transmog already at launch, but that of course remains to be seen. Let's take a closer look at those Digital Deluxe items though. The Digital Deluxe of course being the first tier of upgrade from the standard edition, which will simply contain the game itself. With the Digital Deluxe you get a set of avatars for your PlayStation account, the digital soundtrack, a PlayStation 4 theme, on that note Sony bring back themes for PlayStation 5 please, and the digital art book. And the in-game benefits include that Darkdale attire for Atreus I mentioned, as well as the Darkdale armor for Kratos. And yeah, not sure if you noticed, but at least these pre-order armors are looking a lot more armor-like, with big shoulder pads and little to no skin showing. This Darkdale armor even has these chunky plates protecting Kratos' elbows. Considering how many games Kratos used to walk around shirtless, it's not weird that most outfits in God of War 2018 still had some skin showing. But going by these two sets, Kratos is starting to prefer protection over mobility. One final observation, the legs look pretty much the same apart from the color on both of these outfits, so I think that means that the 3-piece inventory system consisting of your chest piece, bracers and waist will also return. Some things we know for certain will be returning are the grips and handles for Kratos' weapons, as the Digital Deluxe edition also comes with the Darkdale handle for the Blades of Chaos and the Darkdale grip for the Leviathan axe, which are of course used to pick some specific stats or buffs to add to your weapons. And yeah, apart from the changes to the Guardian shield, a lot of the equipment we'll be collecting seems very similar to God of War 2018. Also interesting to note is that we won't have access to these Darkdale items from the start of the game, as the blog post notes they are unlocked via story progression. I assume this just means we'll have to finish some form of tutorial or prologue first. All these digital deluxe items are also present with the two different collector's editions for the game. Because like with Horizon Forbidden West, there are two different editions for the biggest fans of the series, the collector's edition and the Jotnar edition, the last one packing even more goodies than the other. Cool thing is that the box for both of them is modeled after the Shrines of Knowledge you'd come across in the first game, which we can see here in the unboxing vid that was released. Also interesting to note is that both special editions of the game will not include a disc but a printed voucher with a download code instead. Which, call me old school, but I think is a bit of a shame, especially considering the awesome steelbook that comes with the collector's edition. It shows a wolf and a bear, obviously symbolizing Kratos and Atreus, and the back is covered in runes that spell out a short summary of the plot. We'll leave a link to the translation in the video description. There's also two small statues that, for real collectors, complete the set of statues that came with 2018's collector's edition, a bag of polyhedral dice for D&D nerds such as myself, and of course the centerpiece, a full-size replica of Thor's hammer Mjolnir, which is looking awesome. I really like this rendition of Thor's iconic weapon. To give you a feel for the size, the man holding it, Ryan Hurst, who of course voices Thor as well in the game, is almost 2 meters or 6.5 feet tall, and the thing still looks massive next to him. The exact same hammer is featured in the even more decked out Jotnar edition alongside everything else we've just mentioned for the collector's edition. The only thing that's different are the dice. The collector's edition has wooden finished dice, whereas the Jotnar edition has Brock's dice set, which is more metal and blue. It also comes with a 7-inch vinyl with 2 tracks from composer Bear McCreary, the Draupnir ring, which coincidentally belonged to Odin in Norse mythology, and a pin set symbolizing the hero's family, with Kratos as the bear, Faye as the falcon, and Atreus as the wolf. There's also a cloth map of the 9 realms, their locations displayed on the branches of Yggdrasil, the world tree, which actually kind of gives us a glimpse at some of the new realms we haven't been to before. To figure out which one is which on this map, we don't have to speculate, but we can simply put the runes from the realm travel towers in God of War 2018 next to the runes on the map shown here. Going from the bottom to the top, we have Helheim of course being the lowest of the realms, followed by Niflheim and Muspelheim. Above that is Svartalfheim, which also confirms that the footage from the village where we meet Brock and Sindri is indeed also Svartalfheim, as the buildings there look very similar to the one on the map here. In the middle is of course Midgard, frozen over and still encircled by Jormungandr the World Serpent, and then we move up to see Vanaheim, unsurprisingly full of nature and huge trees, as well as some small huts for the Vanir to live in. The only time we've caught a glimpse of this realm was in Freya's hut, but in Ragnarok we will actually be visiting it. Above that we have Alfheim, which looks a lot darker and more barren than the last time we visited, presumably because of the ongoing war between the dark and light elves, and finally all the way at the top we have Jotunheim and of course Asgard. We see a rainbow path, which is of course the Bifrost the gods use to travel, as well as some smaller hovels, but the centerpiece here is of course the giant wall. This is Asgard's defense, and there are already stories in the first game that hint at these being destroyed when Ragnarok comes, presumably at the hands of Freya herself. I for one am very curious to see what's behind them. We'll learn the pricing for each of these editions soon, as like we said, pre-orders are going live on the 15th of July at 10 AM local time. Remember to leave a like if you liked the video, subscribe so you won't miss the next one, and if you want, you can watch our previous video on more info we learned about Ragnarok from a recent blog post. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.